So glad to be here today for another episode of Just Shilling. It's been a couple of weeks here, but a lot's been going on, and really excited to have this conversation with another incredible guest with Anne-Sophie here. So before we do get into it, everyone, just want to go over some quick house rules first and foremost. Nothing that we discuss today is going to ever be considered as financial advice. We're all adults here. Anything that's probably a little bit too controversial for a family dinner, we'll keep that to the side, but really excited to get into this. And last but not least, nothing that we discuss here today is considered financial advice, and the opinions that we share of our own and do not necessarily represent our respective organizations. So without further ado, let's get into it. So wow, like I said, it's been a little while since we had a chance to chat, and Sophie, and so much has been going on. So before we get into that and everything, digital assets and what's going on in our world, let's kind of give the audience a 30-second minute elevator pitch about who you are and what you're up to these days.
Hi. Thank you for the invitation, Trevor, and thank you for being here to talk about digital money, my favorite topic in the world. Let's say, I'm Anne-Sophie. I'm working for KPMG Germany as a lead for digital money, and at the same time, I'm the vice chairwoman of the Digital Euro Association, which is an association looking at the digital euro, but not only the digital euro from the ECB, but all forms that a digital euro can hold. So it could be a stable coin, it can be also the wholesale CBDC or deposit token that are denominated in euro. So our goal is to create a digital euro ecosystem with all kind of money forms, and that's where I come from, and that's what I'm aiming for, and that's why I'm happy to be here and to talk about all these exciting developments in the world.
Yeah, wonderful. And you had mentioned that you first got involved during in kind of early exploration of new forms of digital money, right? So, what was that moment that you realized and said, "Hey, this is more than a career move, and it's something that you genuinely cared about."
Yeah, very interesting question because, to be honest, I came from the banknote sphere, so very, very paper uh, driven. And I was looking into what is interesting for central banks as well. At that time, it's like 6 years ago in Europe. And then I saw central banks are looking into digital forms of money. And I was like, oh my God, that's the next logical step in the evolution of the financial system. I mean,
Yeah.
we have had digitalization in all types of spheres, right? Commerce, media, travel, everything got digitalized beside money. And for me, it was like, yeah, that's such a logical step. And we need to do it well because money is public infrastructure which is used by everyone. It needs to be inclusive. It needs to work offline. There's so many aspects you have to consider. And
Yeah.
for me, participating in the creation of that was something that I was, very excited of. And that's when I started to deep dive into the topic. And then I realized, oh, there's much more than the Digital Euro project of the ECB. There's different types of developments of digital forms of monies, as I said, stable coins or wholesale CBDCs. So then I really got into it, and I realized not only the money is getting digitized, also the assets, right? We get into more forms of financial instruments that are digitized, and suddenly it created a new form of ecosystem. We are still not there, but we are moving fast, right?
Yes, indeed, progression. And we were chatting a little bit about this before we got on here, is that the pace at which this space is moving now, it's quite daunting. So for listeners newer to the space, how should you think about, or how should they rather think about the evolution of digital money in just kind of very simple terms?
Yeah, I would like to give a short intro into money in general because the user often knows money as cash, banknotes and coins. Money can have different faces, also without being digital. You have the money on the bank accounts, which seems to be digital because you look at it through digital screens, right? Or and then it feels digital. Or if you pay with card, but that's the money of the commercial banks. And then there's private money forms as well, right? And people talk about Bitcoin as well. Some call it a form of money as well, some don't. So money can have different faces. What is important, I think, is that we see that all these forms are moving into the digital world. So the commercial bank money that you have on your bank account will have a digital twin. The the banknotes and coins you have right now will have a digital twin, and everything is moving. And then you will see that there's some kind of different forms that need to coexist and to be interoperable, because as we have right now, you have the central bank money. There's also the money that we don't even look at often, because if you are not a financial institute, you don't have access, right? At least in the European Union and in other jurisdiction as well. So there's these different kind of monies, and they all are in one ecosystem and moving, right? It's
Yeah.
not, there's no, it's like an electricity grid. And I guess it's important when we think about digital forms of money, it's important to know that each digital form will have its use case, will have the, their user group and its purpose. But it's important that they are going to be created or developed, not created, because money creation is done by the central bank, probably, or like it's economically different, but a different word meaning. But it will be moved into the digital world, and they have to be interoperable to communicate, because if not, we have
Mm,
silos. And then we have always some media break, and if there's no intersection, it's gonna be complicated. So it's something that we really need to face, but we need to know also that not every user is using every form, right?
yeah. I think that's a really important note, and I really like your point about that. Um, I think that we're moving towards more interoperability, right? A lot of things are going to start to communicate, and old systems that weren't are going to start connecting with the new. It's really a really interesting time. So one of the things too, you had often described money as infrastructure, right? And what is a kind of everyday example that helps make the idea click for people?
Mm, I think, as I mentioned, maybe the electricity grid is some kind of an example where every like everything is interconnected but still separate. Like
Mm,
it's always, you always have intersections at one point, but some are also possible to be used in small spheres, right? And I think that's a possible um, comparison, as well as when we talk about digitization. You don't have borders, and electricity doesn't end at borders as well, and that's something you need to know. We can't, like, even if I'm using the digital euro in Spain or whatever, it's not like a German thing or like a Berlin thing, or
yeah.
it's bigger, and that's something that we need to consider.
I like that. And in terms of misconceptions out there, and I think that there's a lot of room for continued education as well too. What is the kind of most persistent misconception that you still encounter, and why do you think it sticks around?
Oh, good question. I get a lot of ideas that, where sometimes I think, wow, that's a crazy. I guess. I mean, often it's that money is a surveillance tool, so that
Ah,
governments are creating digital forms of money to observe the behavior of their citizens and then to control it. I think if we think of that, like we really mistrust our governments. And I only can speak for Europe. Of course, I know that the world is different and that
Yeah.
very different kind of government in the world. So I just talk about Europe and my views on the European system. But I would say that I live in a democratic system where we have like different pillars, legislative, executive, and judicative, and so they control each other, and that makes that helps that we don't get into a system where government takes over all disciplines and then starts controlling their citizens as well, right? As soon as we get into that kind of government, we would have a lot of problems.
Mm,
We would be then one of them, but it
yeah.
wouldn't be the only one, right? So I guess that's one misconception, to say they are just creating, so governments are just creating digital money for controlling their citizens.
I mean, is
Uh,
that something that you hear a lot amongst kind of your circle and people that actually understand this topic? Is that something that tends to be a major concern, or is it just do you feel more
yeah,
of a
I guess it's
kind
a
of
major
outlier?
concern that people are afraid of changing governments, and then they get a tool. These new governments get a tool for control. Another misconception is, for example, it's the fear of the banks in Europe, that new forms of money or like new financial infrastructures can replace them. Um, but let's say, of course, economy, industry has to develop. I mean, we are all always in the move. I mean, we have been moving, from horses to cars, to we had industrialization, we had digitization, and of course, everyone has to go with it, right? But the European system is, and especially in Germany, the banking system is very stable and is supporting the financial stability. So,
Mm,
of course, the ECB, who is responsible for for financial stability, would never replace banks, because that's part of their financial stability concept, right?
yes.
So, of course, they try everything that the business cases, let's say, of the banks stay stable, and that with the introduction of digital money, there is don't need to be a concern on the financial stability.
And this is a good segue as well too, because I know that, and we're kind of alluding to that, but the idea that multiple forms of money will exist, or coexist rather. So, how should people think about the different roles that they'll play, and how they will ultimately be interconnected?
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I see different types of monies. Um, there's two types that are created by the central bank in digital form. So that's the retail CBDC, central bank digital currency, which is the digital twin of coins and banknotes. And that's what we as users can use to pay for e-commerce in with merchants or peer-to-peer in Europe. So what we get is a digital twin to pay with public money online. That's something we don't have in Europe.
Mm,
So that's what we get. Then for the wholesale settlement, that's the transactions in between banks. The central bank is developing a wholesale central bank digital currency. And that's to be more efficient, because when you have transaction in between countries with a whole amount of money, like these huge amounts of money that have to be transferred from one country to another, there's a lot of it takes a lot of time.
yeah.
Using VAT and having registered the transaction in the blockchain and saved with a cryptography, it makes it secure and immediate. And you have much more efficient transactions in between banks for settlements. And at the same time, as I said before, not only the money is moving into the digital world, but other financial instruments as well. So we are creating a financial ecosystem with digital assets, tokenized money market funds, and so on, tokenized deposits. If everything is moving into the digital world, and on a DLT layer, but not money, we always would have a media break. So that's something why we need the wholesale CBDC.
Yeah.
But these two money forms, retail and wholesale CBDC, are not addressing all kind of use cases. For example, machine-to-machine payments in industry. Industry can't really access these two forms of money because the retail is only for the payments, day-to-day payments. It's not like for industry pays. So for that, we have private forms of money, which are regulated. And that's the stable coins and the deposit token. And so we have clear use cases and forms that are addressing, use cases. And so what I would say is, as I said from the beginning on, they need to be interoperable.
Yeah.
Even though they address clear use cases, at some time you always have settlement in between. Yeah. But first of all, it's important to understand that all these together create a new system and create digital money. It's not just one form that solves every problem, right?
That makes a lot of sense. And, another segue as well, too, and this is a concern, I think, for many people, especially kind of in the retail use cases. What is the most important nuance about privacy? I know we mentioned, there's talks of digital twins and things like that. And obviously, AI with agents are coming into the play and just privacy overall. But, what's the kind of biggest, I would say, or most important nuance about privacy in regard for the public conversation that they often miss?
Well, to be honest, I would return the question, what is privacy for you? Because privacy is a conception for everyone, and everyone feels privacy differently. So where does privacy start and where does it end? And that's a question you need to ask, and then you will see that for everyone, the definition of privacy is very different. So to give one answer that fits all, it's very difficult. So the question that has to be asked is, who sees what in which extent, and is that okay for me or not? So if we talk about retail CBDC, for example, in Europe, the ECB will not see the transactions of someone using digital euro. That's what they consider as private, because the ECB, the central bank, will not have any look at this. At the same time, if you connect the digital euro to your bank account, maybe it could be possible that the banking employee can have a look, as he can also look into your accounts and see what you're paying and what you're not paying. So it would be the same privacy as we have right now in Europe, because the same people see the same thing. And then for cash, the question also is, when you go to the supermarket, I go to the supermarket, I have two children, the supermarket knows exactly, I always go to the same, they know what I buy, they know my children, they see how they grew up, and I'm not very private over there either, right? They know mostly my habits in buying something.
Yeah.
So is that private? I mean, they sometimes even ask, oh, what are your children doing today? They are chatting, and that's something nice. So that's what I mean. There's no yes and no, or there's no black and white with privacy. But
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because, there's so many different areas within our normal lives that we're doing things that sometimes people are just very casual about, and they're sharing a lot more than they probably know. But I think that goes back to a bigger education about what privacy is. And I like your different distinctions there for sure. And I think that, with this technology,
I would say.
it can also be used differently depending on your jurisdiction. So once again, it kind of goes to that higher level question about, how well do you trust your government in the first place,
Yes.
and the people that you have that are being a representative of the citizens for sure. So, talking about something that we were alluding to earlier, what does a truly inclusive digital money system look like in practice for you?
Mm, well, it needs, well, depending who's the user group, because inclusivity for me means that who can access, right? And especially looking at the retail euro, so the digital twin of banknotes and cash. For me, digital inclusiveness means not only that handicapped people can access, but also people who are not digital natives can access.
Mm,
So inclusiveness for me means that we also address children who maybe don't have cell phones when they get their first pocket money, or like maybe old people, of course, handicapped people as well, but because not everybody can see, right, what's
yeah,
going on.
yeah,
You
you're right. Wow, yeah.
So that's inclusiveness. And then for the other forms of money, I'm not sure if inclusiveness is a real topic, because it's very specific to use cases which or to user groups which are already, let's say, onboarded, already active in the digital world. So I'm not sure if inclusiveness is, maybe I would say it's mostly important for the use cases in the retail um, domain.
Yeah, case by case basis for sure.
Mhm.
From your vantage point, um, what separates organizations that are approaching this transition thoughtfully from those that are just more reacting and just trying to play catch up?
Um, well, let's say at the moment we are at a point where you can decide strategically what you want to do. Do you want to be a follower, or someone who's only like follow implementing the regulation, or if you want to be some kind of leader, fast mover, and shaper also, because the legislative process is not ended yet, so you can still give opinions and help with, like, when you have done trials and see something is not working, or the way, for example, holding limits are treated is not well done. If you are a shaper and if you are thinking of the whole system beforehand, before it's implemented or before you have to implement, you are still in the mode to shape, to create.
Yeah,
Same for the digital money infrastructure. It's not done yet. So as a shaper, you still can, let's say, influence in a good way. What is helpful and not. So it's very, very important that all stakeholders try to be shapers, because only then, if everyone thinks this infrastructure for the future, only then we can have the best system. If everyone is just following what we are creating on paper, that is not helpful. So for me, the call would be that everyone needs, or we need pilots, participants to the pilot projects that are starting, where we will have like the call for interest now in March for the digital retail euro. We will get the wholesale CBDC Pontus in October, and it's very important that we have people who implement and who do the first steps. And yeah, for me that would be very important.
so it sounds like, we're not there yet, in that this is still evolving, this is still something that's fluid, and that people, if they do have concerns or they do have questions, this is an opportunity for them to actually get involved and be a part of that conversation, right?
Exactly. And in the end, when they start later, they will only be the ones who implement. And if then they face difficulties or something, it's going to be much more difficult to change then. So, yeah, for
I
me.
like that. Well, this is wonderful, and it sounds more like not a case of when this technology or how this technology gets implemented, but rather when, right? So we're really moving forward in such a great pace. It's remarkable. What impact do you hope your work has on how this technology reaches people?
Mm, well, I would say there's different pillars. On one hand, I want to inform and educate. I mean, educate, like I'm not a teacher, but like inform people and help them understand where we stand, why it's important to be involved, and how they can support to create the system. And on the other hand, I want to I feel like being some kind of networker where we get people together. We have the central banks. We talk to the central banks, but we also talk to the new economy of people who are working in DLT in new ideas, and that's like very traditional houses together with very future thinking people, and being the bridge in between and trying to get this to have a space to get them together, because only when we move together it will be a success. I think that's where I want to be my impact.
Love that. Well, we're almost coming up on time here. Really incredible. I love these conversations. They always go by so much faster, and I feel like I'm always wanting to learn more after we have these kind of conversations. But for the listeners out there, for them to remember one idea, if just one, I know there are so many others, Anne-Sophie, but just one about the future of money from this conversation, what do you hope that they will remember?
Good question. The future of money is not about replacing the system we have today. It's about upgrading the infrastructure behind it, and so that it works better in a digital economy. So we will not have something, we will not say goodbye to something. We will welcome money in the digital world. And that's something that we need to know.
I like that. I like that. Well, this has been very insightful. Thank you so much for your time. I'm so glad that we finally got a chance to connect here and have this conversation. For those that weren't able to tune in live, we'll have this up on the socials. We'll get this on YouTube so that we can watch the entire conversation, and we'll have some clips shortly as well too. But what's the best way that people can get in touch with you? How can they follow not only the work that you're doing, but the work of the organization that you represent as well too?
Well, the easiest way to contact me is LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, and I'm very active on LinkedIn. So you can find me on LinkedIn. And for the Digital Euro Association, we have a website. We have a big conference, like the biggest conference in Europe on these topics, which will take place in March now, the 26th of March. So in case you're around in Frankfurt, I'm happy to welcome you there. And yeah.
Nice. Are there any other conferences or events or anything else that maybe announcements that people should be aware of? Obviously, that you can disclose that's
Well,
public.
as
Is there anything else that people should kind of be
I
aware
would
of?
say, the most important one is a Digital Euro conference on the 26th in Frankfurt. Yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much for your time. And
You.
for everyone that got a chance to tune in today, I hope this was valuable and that you learned something new. And look forward to having you all back again. But take care. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you decided to be here with us today. I appreciate you. Take care. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.